What's up, DeGroot? Welcome to your weekly NBA Bizcast. My name is Tunde, and I'm here with my good buddy.
I'm Pac, Alex, Speedo Man, whatever you want to call me these days.
Hey, what's up, Alex?
I'm good, Tunde. How are you doing?
Not bad. It might seem like that we gave up on this. We have not. We have been away for a little bit. I don't know if anyone noticed. I was actually out of the country for a brief period.
Yeah, we had a world traveler within our midst. Tunde hit up Europe, did the world tour.
Yeah, exchange was fantastic, but I'm glad to be back, and we are glad to be back. This week, it's Skeleton Crew, myself and Alex, but we are going to have our regular hosts, Connor CC Catamaris, back, hopefully next week. And we are looking to add a fourth member to the team, so if you're interested, definitely feel free to drop either of us a line. We can always use a great contributor on the team.
It's always like this 3 or 4 weeks into the season. You get a couple injuries, a couple casualties, and then the free agent pool kind of dries up. So we're going to be hitting the waiver wire pretty aggressively here to try and find somebody to fill up this roster.
I don't know if I mentioned this already, but we are doing this podcast. Today is the week of September 22nd, and we will be doing these weekly, hopefully dropping team on Mondays, and look for some information on the Facebook page for the NBA page, on the What's Up to Group page, and we'll also be doing our Twitter handles to become a little bit more active in the coming weeks at What's Up to Group. So let's get right into the topics of the day. We're going to start it off with tech news because you know I do love the tech. And could you guess what I'm going to talk about today, Mr. Pockernick?
I got a feeling it's going to involve a major brand and a major product launch, and I'll let you take it from there.
You know, our favorite fruit is always the orange. No, I kid. That's a bad joke. We all know what happened recently. Apple came out last weekend with the iPhone 6 and the 6 Plus. Quick numbers. Pre-orders made it available, I think, in 42 countries. To start, 10 million units moved over the weekend. They haven't broken down 6 and 6 Plus, but the new structure is the iPhone 6 is your base. It's $200. You got your 6 Plus, which is, I think, $300. And on your old iPhones, your 5Cs and your 5Ss, those are all free. So, well, the product range is expanded. They've launched the phones, but the biggest news is the fact that it's big. They finally went up to the size of the modern smartphones, the Samsungs, the LGs, the HTCs. The new iPhones are 4.7 and 5.5 inches, respectively. Thoughts?
That's pretty massive, yeah. That's a lot of girth on those phones, you could say.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that it took this long. Like, if you really think about it, most people don't realize it's 2014. The iPhone's been around since 2007, so this is 7 years of smartphone before they joined what everyone else has been doing for the last 3 years.
Well, the incredible thing is one of their big differentiation points is that they're always innovating. They're always coming out with the newest product. But really, I felt at least the last couple of product launches, it seemed to be very small incremental additions to the existing product line. So for them to, you're in the 6 series now and you've finally gotten up to industry standard. That's pretty remarkable to me, and that's something that companies like Samsung have recently keyed in on in their recent marketing campaigns and ad campaigns, talking about the fact that they were there first and that they've already been doing this for quite some time. So we're not very used to seeing Apple get that kind of negative backlash. So it'll be interesting to see what the consumer response is, although 10 million units sold right off the hop. I mean,
that is a new sales record. But it's always really aggressive at the start. I think part of it is people really do enjoy, as silly as it sounds, people enjoy waiting in line. People enjoy big debuts. This initial spike is not as important as what happens during the holidays. Last year they had a huge spike on the 5S, and during the holidays they were actually neck and neck with Samsung. They weren't able to crush them over the holidays. So the holidays is where I actually usually make my judgments.
I'm going to make a judgment on anybody who stands in line for one of these products. It's absolutely ridiculous. You cannot tell me that is a worthwhile use of your time. There's so many things you can do in a day. Standing in a line in a mall for a phone cannot be high on that priority list.
Let me give you actually a beautiful piece of anecdotal evidence. Me, Chang, a few other guys in the program, we're down in New York last weekend. And as you know, in New York, it's one of the biggest Apple stores in the world, a giant glass cube. They call it the Cube. And it's sitting outside, and this is a couple days after the phone's already been launched, and there are 200 or 300 people sitting outside in the miserable heat. It's so humid. It's 28 degrees plus the humidity, sitting outside waiting to pick this thing up. And so I asked, what do you think the idea is? And when someone was like, it's like a shared experience, the line experience. You bond more. The product means more to you. And I was like, no, it doesn't. When it gets shipped directly to my home, it means the exact same to me because I never waited in line, but I still have the exact same product that you have after sitting here getting swampy in the humidity.
I think I've waited in line only a handful of times, and one of the times I waited in line was to get Pearl Jam tickets at a Ticketmaster outlet at the Burlington Mall. And I was standing behind 4 teenage kids who were just completely baked out of their minds. And they actually had to scrape together change to pay for their tickets with cash because none of them had a credit card. And by the time I got to the line, 10 minutes later, they were sold out. So I really have a very strong distaste for lines. I still went to that PJ show, though. It was a great concert.
I think the only time I waited in line that I can remember, and this is going to bring out the inner nerd. I think anyone who knows me already knows I'm a nerd. I waited in line to get Halo 3 at midnight in like 2006 or something. And it was just the most miserable time ever. Video games always come out in the fall. It was a particularly particularly chilly night. And we're standing out there, and it's the feature shop guys are coming out and giving everyone like Rockstar and Red Bull, keeping everyone up. And it was just a miserable experience. We were cold. The Rockstar didn't help. The one in line was that friendly. And all this shared experience nonsense. We got the game and left immediately and went home. We could have just bought it the next morning at 8 o'clock. But anyway, let's go back to the main topic. The new iPhones, they're bigger. The software is a little bit changed. But realistically, they didn't do much on the iPhone 6. It runs the exact same as every other iPhone. The 6 Plus is where they're trying to say, hey, if we're going to make a big phone, we're going to make it right. So they have a bunch of stuff that basically designed to kind of use your screen twofold. They have panels. There's a neat little trick. If you hit the home button, it slides the whole screen down halfway for those whose thumbs can't reach the top of the screen. It's a few neat touches here and there, and when you turn your phone sideways, you now get like your listed emails on the side and the actual email body, so you can actually see what you're doing as if you were on a computer. Neat stuff, but nothing revolutionary. My concern is so many people I know who have iPhones have a huge thing about it is that it's so thin, it's so small, like I can put it in anything, it fits in my pocket. I feel like they're going to alienate some of their market.
They very well could. But I mean, now we're just at a position where we were talking about 7 years ago, and it's incredible to think that it's been that long since the iPhone line has been around. But we're in a position now where there are a lot of manufacturers that are making comparable products. And the selection now it's better now than it's ever been. We had OnePlus has now entered the market with a lot of buzz from China. Yeah. As we said before, Samsung has now become a very strong player in this segment. HTC, LG, a lot of products that are available, and I think you have more consumer choice than ever before. So if they do have a core consumer base that feels alienated, they're going to have other choices to go to. I'm going to flip it a little bit over here to make it a little more Canadian relevant, because speaking about big displays, we've got the BlackBerry Passport that has now come out.
Good call.
This is an interesting play from John Chen, because we've felt that over the last few months that BlackBerry's main positioning in terms of monetizing their product line is moving more towards services instead of handsets. In fact, there was some indication that BlackBerry might leave the handset market altogether now. But the Passport's coming out now. This is an interesting product. I don't know if it's a phone, if it's a tablet. Not exactly sure what area they're trying to play in, but any thoughts on that, Tunde?
I think so. Full disclosure, I was an intern at BlackBerry January of 2013, and I was a huge supporter of the company. So I want to put that out front so you can know my biases. I think what he's doing right now is a little bit of a strange play. Like you, I believe that their only hope for success was in services. If they became an exclusive services company and they were seen as less of a threat, I thought there was actually a huge chance for collaboration with many of the manufacturers. And they can put guys like Good and Safe and Knox. I don't know if you heard of these companies. If you worked at a big company, you might have had them. They install this stuff on your smartphone software and you get your email. BlackBerry could have put all those guys out of business with a cross-platform solution if they were able to get out of the smartphone game and become a services company. Now, to the Passport itself, I think it's not a very attractive consumer device, but there are some business people who are still fighting, still holding on, and for those people, every spec bump counts. And this is a faster phone, this is a better screen, it's a gorgeous screen. Mm-hmm. It's a better display, better processor. Even the keyboard, the materials, everything's been refined, but I do think the fact that it's a giant square, and this display it uses is actually a custom display, which is very expensive to BlackBerry, to make it a perfect square. That is going to help out with aspect ratios and spreadsheets and those kinds of things, but it's not going to help out with the resolution of apps that they're using from Android. So right now, people aren't developing for BlackBerry, so they're using Android apps. they're usually almost always scaled to fit 16:9 and 16:10. The wide screens you have on a regular smartphone like your Galaxy or like my LG, it's gonna look odd on the passport. I'm concerned that that experience is going to create a disconnect, and some people who are on the fringe are just gonna be like, if I can't even have just my most basic apps, my Yelps, my Googles, my Zagat, I don't even want to. I'm going on restaurants right now because all I can think of is food. But if I can't have these apps or like, you know, your Angry Birds, whatever it is you want, I think people are going to be too frustrated, and that's going to lead to low uptake in this product.
I just realized we've got the dynamic right now. It's very much like the old Adam Sandler, Chris Farley skit from SNL where they talk about Zagats and you're talking about all these beautiful restaurants you want to go to around New York, and I'm just sitting there going, please kill me now! Put a gun to my head!
I'm just so hungry though. Honestly, we should never do this thing on an empty stomach. But moving on, there is another thing I want to touch on. This one is more of a, not really going into the technical or even going into the sales, just into the idea. Apple's released their iWatch, same announcement, or they've announced their iWatch, same announcement as the iPhone. It's going to come out in, I believe, early 2015. They haven't put a solid date. And it's going to do all the standard stuff. It's a pedometer. It's a workout machine. It tracks how much you run. It can tell if you're climbing, biking, if you're going uphill. It's also going to have a few notifications and the weather. But I actually, as crazy as it sounds, I don't have a smartwatch, and I'm obsessed with gadgets. And people would say that I have an unhealthy obsession with the amount of tablets and phones I have. I have never bought a smartwatch. I've only ever seen one that mildly interested me. Do you think this market, like everyone's going all in now, do you think this is a market that's a useful thing for the consumer?
I don't think so. I mean, the fact that watches are still relevant today, even though we have all kinds of devices that tell us the time, kind of indicates the place of the watch in terms of especially with the gentleman's style. I mean, when you think about how the watch is an accessory for formal wear and semi-formal wear and business wear, and you have different watches for it's a customization accessory piece. That's the way that I would look at a watch. And I'm not sure if the functionality of these pieces will supersede the aesthetic appeal. To me, that's always the beautiful thing about having a timepiece on your wrist, is that look and the way that it matches with an outfit. And obviously for the people who've seen me slum around RJC in track pants and a Cornell hockey hoodie, you're probably thinking, what the hell is this guy talking about? He has absolutely no credibility whatsoever. But I think that's kind of the main place of a watch in an outfit, and I'm not sure it's going to be able to fit that role. The functionality aspect of it, I mean, it's obviously, it's very cool. I mean, to think that we're even at this point where you can have effectively a very high processing, speedy computer on your wrist is mind-blowing to me. But I don't know. I don't think the functionality supersedes the aesthetic appeal to me.
And that is exactly where I was going to take this. So if for anyone who's listening who hasn't heard about it, type into Google the Moto 360. It is the first smartwatch that's going to be round. It actually has a nice bezel, an aluminum band. It actually is a somewhat good-looking watch. But the ultimate failure this product has, and that may be a bit harsh, but the ultimate problem for me with it is exactly what you described, is matching your outfits, the aesthetics, the individuality. These smartwatches, a manufacturer might make one. Maybe they make two, but that is only two variants. Now, if we all go out and buy a smartwatch, and everyone wears the exact same looking watch, maybe you change the bracelet or something, it's not a significant enough customization. There's literally hundreds of different kinds of faces, bezels, straps, designs. I'm a watch guy myself. I own about 10 watches. But every single one of the watches is very distinct. No two of my watches even look similar. But if I'm to wear a smartwatch, I'm going to have the same smartwatch as Alex, who's going to have the same watch as Josh or Hartnett, or any of these people. You all end up with the same watch because there's not that much variety in design. And the head and the face are always going to be relatively the same because it's the same platform.
Yeah, I mean, I think the higher end of the market won't be worried. If you look at your Rolex and Tag Heuer and AP, I don't think they're worried about having their margins cut into, because people who are buying those types of timepieces aren't all of a sudden going to change for that very same reason. I think the segment of the market that might be concerned would be the Timexes and the Seikos and the
Fossils.
Right, and the Fossils and the Citizens of the world who are their kind of value proposition is the ability to be that entry level to mid level an economy based type of watch, and maybe that's where they see some of their business get hit into. But again, I don't know. I'm interested to see. I'm skeptical. I wouldn't say that I'm going to completely write this off. I'm skeptical right now.
I think you bring up a great point. I think if I was ever to see it reach that critical mass and become a popular mass adoption product, it's going to be when, Apple or Google or Samsung is working with Fossil and Citizen saying, okay, you're going to make the case, the bands, it's going to be watches in regular variety. We're going to stick an LCD in above this layer. And now you have watches are actually still watches, what with the smart functionality. If you leave it to the tech companies to design it, their budget, they're limited, their design is limited, their sensibilities are technology focused. They're going to make one design a year, and that's all you're going to get, and everyone's going to have the same design. If you team up with, especially these mid-tier guys, who are the ones who are going to lose money, mid to lower tier guys, team up with those guys. I would love to see Fossil actually get together with Google, and Fossil makes tons and tons of designs every year. They're one of the more successful, mid-range brands. If they team up with someone like Google, I think that'd be a fantastic result.
Leveraging synergies. This is business speak. This is what you get out of this podcast. And for the new kids, this is how you're going to start talking as an MBA. 24 months into this program, it's going to permeate every aspect of your life.
So let's change gears. Let's go to the thing that always permeates every single break between class. I'm talking NFL. I'm talking NFL news. Hit me, Bach.
All right. Well, I guess we do have to touch on this because even though it's been such an exciting start to the season, we have got just probably the most volatile and most fantastical beginning to a season that you could ever possibly imagine, and probably for all the wrong reasons. Unless you've been living under a rock over the last couple of weeks, you now know that Ray Rice has been released by the Ravens, suspended indefinitely by the NFL for an aggravated assault on his wife, or who was then his fiancée. Adrian Peterson has been suspended by the Minnesota Vikings for alleged child abuse, which is extremely graphic. We've got other situations too. We've got Jonathan Dwyer, running back of the Arizona Cardinals, who's now had allegations about beating his wife. We've got Greg Hardy, defensive end for the Carolina Panthers, who has a domestic assault charge that has been placed on him. And it's just all kinds of headaches for this league, and really a lot of monsters are being exposed.
And don't forget the recent comments/allegations about Brandon Marshall.
Yes. Marshall's an interesting case because Marshall was actually diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and he is very much gone on record the last couple of seasons speaking about how he was not healthy. And his wife and him have been huge proponents lately of mental health awareness in the United States and abroad. So I think that case is slightly anomalous, but at the same time, though, we're seeing a very ugly side of this league exposed. And I guess the question now becomes, in a season that's already had a multitude of headaches for Goodell, Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the league, what is the role of the NFL in terms of setting social precedents in the United States of America? Because it is incredible how many people are wired into this league. I mean, it is the heartbeat of America. And I'm not sure that we've even seen anything in Obama's tenure that has had this kind of resonance with the general American public over the last 8 years. It's actually incredible to see the reactions to this.
That's what happens when you make billions of dollars a month. And that's what the NFL does. Every month the NFL makes billions of dollars. I think the revenue for last year was $21 billion. You can't avoid the speculation, and people feel there is a certain sense of duty and leadership expected from these athletes and from the league in general. My concern that I have is, when will it be that there's actually the judicial process allowed to take place first? In some cases, I understand there's no reason to wait when it's quite obvious. When you have videotape evidence, I understand. And the Ray Rice situation is a very cut and dry situation, in my opinion, because of the way you have the evidence. My problem is these other players, this isn't the first time this has happened to players. Other players have had this happen. They've gone through legal processes. The teams have dealt with it, and their spouses have dealt with it, but it's never been on media. Now, because of the Ray Rice situation, every time someone does something, there is the fear that, hey, if we don't suspend this guy for the rest of the season, if we don't cut this guy, if we don't punish him, if we don't come down on him with an axe, we're not doing the right thing and the media is going to kill us. But is that actually the right thing for these people, for their families, for the actual process?
Well, that's a very important point that we touch on here, is the objective nature of the justice system, and you need the legal process to take its due course. You can't interfere in that. You can't provide context that makes sway an opinion away from looking at objective fact and using reasonable doubt to make decisions. But I think this is just the new normal that we're in, and I think this is a complete byproduct of the way Goodell handled the first situation. The Ray Rice situation was completely messed up. There's no way to look at that and say that Goodell or the league handled it well. It's a terrible PR mistake and a disaster. But furthermore, they failed. They failed the American public. They failed their key stakeholders, which are their fans, their sponsors, their franchises, in the way that they handled that situation. Now, the aftermath of that is simply, if you are a Jonathan Dwyer or a Greg Hardy, you are going to get the hammer come down on you. And I think that's squarely on the way that the league handled the first situation. Because now you're tiptoeing around glass. There's broken glass everywhere, and you don't want that next mistake to blow up into the situation that the first one became. My issue with all of this, and I have to say that I've read a lot of long-form pieces on a lot of sites like Deadspin and Grantland, and a lot of very strong opinion pieces that are written very eloquently and very articulately, but they insinuate that if you watch the product that you are now part of the problem. I don't feel like I'm a part of the problem. I'm a consumer of this product and I enjoy the entertainment. What I go back to is Charles Barkley told us this 25 years ago. He said, we are not role models. Do not look to professional athletes as the basis for your moral compass. And I don't understand where that changed in society. I don't understand where we're looking at these guys and putting them on a pedestal and expecting that their behavior is supposed to set the tone for everybody else's. I'm not condoning these actions in the least. What I'm saying is maybe it's time for us to reconsider who we place on these pedestals as our heroes and our idols. Maybe just enjoy the product for what it is, the entertainment aspect of it, and after that, you've got to walk away and leave it alone. That's the way it kind of seems to me, but...
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Honestly, I think, and this is not, I don't want to get down into a rabbit hole, but if you look at the way and this is not justification either, if you look at the way the NFL is and the size of the NFL, and you have a 53-man roster by 30 teams, there's a lot of guys in the NFL whose job it is to go out and hit someone, go out and make a play, go out to do something that's not one of the skill positions. Then you have some guys playing skill positions, but even then, it's a physical and aggressive game and aggressive mindset. But when you actually look at the statistics of domestic assault, abuse, any kind of criminal charges, it actually is not that much different from regular society. So they are the same people as we are. So why do you expect them to behave better than the rest of society? Because you pay them a lot of money? It's unrealistic to think that just because these guys are in a league and they're on TV, that automatically they have to have like this clean spec record. And people are going to make mistakes, and you hope they learn from their mistakes, but they have the exact same rates as the rest of American society. They are the exact same people. So when you go out and say that all these guys are a bunch of scum, remember that they're saying that everyone in society is a bunch of scum because they have the exact same rates of crime and the exact same incidences.
See, proportional thinking is something that I think is lost on a lot of people, but that's a very good point. You even look at the same kind of scandals that we have in politics, but these people are drawn theoretically from the same social pools as any other organization, any other institution. You know, we look at the mayor down the QEW and we act surprised, but it's like, just because we put these people under the public microscope does not mean that they've changed. So again, I mean, I would hope that this is an opportunity, especially for families, to reevaluate, especially when you're talking to your kids, you know, who your real role models are. I had a really big awakening experience when I was a kid. My favorite player growing up, my favorite athlete was Theoren Fleury. I loved Theo Fleury. He checked himself into a voluntary rehab program when I was 13 years old. He was the leading scorer in the league at the time with the Rangers. He was having a renaissance season, and he was fighting a lot of demons. And that was a really big moment for me as a fan to realize that these guys aren't necessarily invincible, and they're not necessarily different than anybody else. And they fight through the same demons and the same kind of social backgrounds that formulate these kinds of results and influence these kinds of decisions. At the end of the day, I just think that you really, perception is very important, and talking about the way you look at proportionally breaking down these criminal acts compared to the rest of the league, that's a very important scope to look at this through, and I think that's a really strong point.
I think time to change gears again.
Yeah,
now it's time to talk about something that everyone should be excited about, and that's the opening of NHL training camp.
Why don't we talk about some sports with a little bit more happy context? NHL camps are open, preseason games are happening. We've got a lot of injury news actually for people who are getting ready for fantasy drafts. Jordan Staal injury was brutal. Staal's out with a broken leg. We've got Derek Stepan of the Rangers, had a fractured tibia. He'll be out close to 2 months. Pavel Datsyuk, the Magic Man of the Detroit Red Wings, separated his shoulder. He's out 5 weeks. We've got injuries all over the place.
My boy Claude Giroux, I'm a little bit concerned. Lower body injury for now. I think it might be a hamstring issue. I'm really concerned.
Probably pulled it when he fell out of a golf cart in the summer golf tournament.
Hey.
Pulled the old Eric Johnson. But it's a very exciting time. We've got a lot of camps are in full swing now. All of them are, and we've got a lot of exhibition games to watch. Hockey is back on TV. Let's get some predictions. How about that? So give me some predictions for who you think you got coming out of the East, the West, any major award winners, who's going to win the Cup. That's what we want to hear.
I think the East is still weak. I'm going to start with the West. I've only seen a little bit of hockey, but Brad Richards looked different to me playing in Chicago. And Kane and Taves with their new big deals, and that stretch pass from Richards out to Kane for that just absolutely filthy goal. If that's the way they're going to play during the season, I could easily see them being back in the Western Conference Final. Pending their somewhat shaky goaltender, I'm thinking they're going to come out of the West. In the East, I'm a homer. I'm hoping my boys make the playoffs. I think we're stronger than people give us credit for. But of course, shaky goaltending in the Flyers means we are probably looking at 6th place, 5th place at best. I think you really have to look at where the goaltending is strong and where there's been some upgrades. Maybe a bit of a dark horse. I think Montreal will be better this year. And they were already really good in the playoffs last year, but regular season they were up and down. Carey Price just seems invincible to me. And if this guy continues to play like the way he's playing, I don't think the Rangers have nearly enough offense or scoring, and they haven't changed it enough for me to be able to say they're going to go back and challenge again. I'm looking at Montreal, Chicago, original 6. It's early, but that's what I'd like to see.
That's an interesting prediction there. Yeah, that would be pretty neat. The East is wide open. There's a very distinct difference now between the West and the East insofar as the West, the teams separate themselves from the elite and the very bad. You've got a very elite tier in the West, and then you've got teams like my Flames and the Oilers. And, that bottom end is pretty bad in the West. I think the East is interesting because literally it is a crapshoot. You just need a ticket to the dance. Montreal proved that last year. They had the first 2 series that they won, especially that Boston series. That sent a lot of shockwaves through the hockey world. It'll be interesting to see how Price is rehabbed from his knee injury. That was a pretty significant knee injury that knocked him out of the playoffs last year. I think a team that not enough people are talking about, the Tampa Bay Lightning. You have a healthy Steven Stamkos. You've got an excellent young core that's going to be supplemented by Jonathan Drouin, who's my pick for Rookie of the Year this year. He's going to be playing in a top 6 role right off the bat on a very good team. You've got Alex Killorn, Tyler Johnson, Nikita Kucherov. You've got a lot of young guys there with a lot of talent.
The question I ask, between the pipes.
Benny Bishop. Benny Bishop, Tunde. That kid can play. If Tampa Bay gets home ice, and I know they had home ice last year and got promptly swept by the Habs, but they had a lot of injuries they were fighting through. And Bishop going down was huge. I mean, that demonstrates to you how important that guy was on that team.
Fair enough.
But they're in a division where they're going to be able to rack up a lot of points against some mediocre teams. If they get home ice, and they've got a healthy Stamkos throughout the season, and Drouin plays well, I think they're really tough out in the East. And John Cooper is a coach that I really respect. I think they've got a very good basis there for a team that can contend for the next 2 years until Stevie might make his way up here and sign for the blue and white. I'm just throwing it out there, Leafs fans, and I'm not even a Leafs fan. I want to get this bandwagon going early.
But okay, let's we might as well do it because everyone's going to want to know about it. What do you think about our 2014-2015 Toronto Maple Leafs?
I think they're a much deeper team than last year, and the biggest thing you're going to see is if they make a commitment to not dress a 4th line that literally cannot skate. That's going to make a huge difference. When they had games last year where they dressed both Orr and McLaren, they're only playing 5 minutes a night because they're complete liabilities. You've got to shift that workload elsewhere. And it went on to Phil, and it went on to JVR, and it went on to the big guns, Lupul. And these guys weren't able to sustain that pace throughout the entire season. You've got to limit that workload early. The biggest difference you're going to see in that bottom 6, you've got guys who can play. You've got David Booth, you've got Daniel Winnick, you've got Mike Santorelli. Petri Kontiola that they signed over had a very strong World Championships in Finland. They got Leo Komarov back. Guys
Corporal.
Like Corporal Komarov, he's back for comrades. They've got a lot of young kids too on some really good deals that are hungry to play. Carter Ashton, Matt Fratt, and they're going to be able to roll 4 lines, and I think you're going to see a more refreshed top 6 because of that. I think you're going to see guys like Kessel, JVR, Kadri get some softer starts. They're not going to have to do all the heavy lifting. They're not going to have to start in their own zone anymore as much. And maybe Willie Nylander also makes the team. That would be very interesting.
I was just about to ask if you think young Williams going to make the team.
I think young Williams is a better option on right wing in the second line than Mimico Ontario's David Clarkson.
Ugh, that still stings. Leaf fans must still be hurt. Was that a 7-year deal, $49 million?
He's it was 7 years, $36 million, so he's got $31 million to go.
That's great. That's a great deal.
It's like, you know how you have those United Way thermometers that do like the fundraising and they show it keeps going up? Like Toronto, I think Leafs fans have one that goes in the reverse, and it's like, only 5 years and $27 million left, and it keeps going backwards. I think they're going to fight for a wild card. I don't think you're going to see the real changes until probably 2016 when that free agent bonanza happens. With Dubas, the thing that he's going to help, Kyle Dubas, the assistant GM, very heavy into analytics, used to be the GM of the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. He's going to stress that they don't overpay for the replaceable items. So their bottom six isn't going to be overpaid. You're not going to see any more Clarkson contracts. What that's going to do, it's going to open up their top end. And when they've got an opportunity to make a run at a Stamkos or make a run at an Eric Stahl or somebody like that in that free agency pool, they're going to have the money to do that. So if I'm a Leafs fan, you've already waited 40 plus years, wait a couple more, that's when the changes are coming. But
let's quick switch over. What about the back end on the Leafs? They signed a couple new guys, but I think Dion Phaneuf is still the best defenseman on that team, and I think that is always a questionable thing to have on your team.
That is a problem. You've got the corpse of Stefan Robidas, who's expected to play 25 plus minutes a night. Roman Polak had a bit of a tough season in St. Louis when everybody else looked great. The two kids I would expect more contributions from. Gardner and Riley, I think, are two guys that are going to make an even further step forward. I think Gardner with more confidence, but Riley is the guy that I'm very high on Morgan Riley. This kid can play. And
I'm surprised they ever drafted Morgan Riley when they already had Jake Gardner, who's almost the exact same player, only with a little less skill.
You know what, though? It's 2014. You can never have enough puck movers now. The game is all about possession, and the game is all about making that crisp first pass.
I'm just concerned when you have a team that's weak defensively on the forward lines, you have those two guys out there on any kind of situation that's not a power play, you're asking for trouble.
It could be. That'll be an interesting thing to watch, but I got Tampa Bay coming out of the East. I really like Chicago on the West with Brad Richards. It's a huge upgrade on Handzus, but I'm going to say LA gets him again. Anze Kopitar to me is just the most phenomenal two-way center to watch. You got Kopitar and Jeff Carter down the middle as a 1-2. That is terrifying.
Cannot stand the LA Kings. All they did was steal a bunch of Flyers and go on to victory. I will always boo those guys for the rest of my life.
Today, how do you think I felt watching Daryl Sutter after he decimated the Flames go in and have a Stanley Cup, two of them falling into his lap?
2 times. He did absolutely nothing for the first one.
And we
just showed up.
We've still got Dennis Weidman playing 30 minutes a night. A lot of fun. But yeah, we're really excited about the sports season, and always that is the currency of conversation on the RJC campus. Sports in between class.
So I think that's going to wrap it up here this week. Just a couple little things. We are going to be pushing these out, like I said, weekly, hoping for a Monday kind of start. So you'll get them every Monday. Watch our Facebook. Watch the Twitter. My name is Tunde. This is Alex. And we're hoping to have, like I said, we're looking for a fourth cast member to join us and Connor. And hoping to provide you guys with your weekly NBA BizCast moving forward. Thank you, and rock and roll.
Have a good night, boys.